Welcome to Introduction to Algebra. We have a little comic to get us started. Mom, I need a way to curry favor with my algebra teacher. Well, when I was a kid, we gave our teacher an apple. Good idea. Little different interpretation of that word apple over the generations, right? We're on this page in your notes, and to get us started, we are going to do some vocabulary review and some learning of new vocabulary so we can all speak the same language. And algebra actually is a language. It is a language of math symbols. A variable is a symbol or letter used to represent a number. So for example, you could have the variable x, y, k. You could have a star used to represent a number, etc. We usually use letters. An expression is a math phrase using variables, numbers, and at least one operation. There's never an equal sign with expressions, and we simplify expressions. So for example, 3x. That's understood to be 3 times x. We could have x squared. The operation is squaring. We could have 4 minus x. We could have 6x to the 4th plus 2x squared minus 7x. That's an expression. There are no equal signs. An equation is a mathematical sentence. Equations always have equal signs, and we solve equations. So make sure you understand the difference here. We just simplify these. We make them look a little tidier. We actually solve equations. We get x equals 12, y equals -4/3, etc. A term is the part of an expression. I like to think of them as cars on the train. So if I draw little cars on this train here, that has 3 terms. And this is always, let's put a little phrase here because we will get into this in a couple nights, after simplification. Now the coefficient is the numerical part of the term. So for -4a, my variable is a and my coefficient is -4. For 1/2 y, my variable is y and my coefficient, +1/2. My coefficient is 1/2. 6x squared, the coefficient. Now this has 2 numerical parts, but the coefficient is 6. The power is 2. The variable is x. K to the 3rd, what's the coefficient there? Think very carefully. What is sitting out here? There is a 1 sitting out there. We don't write 1s in math typically. My variable is k. My power is 3. But my coefficient is not 3, it's just a 1. That being said, what's the coefficient in -t squared? The coefficient in that case is -1 and the variable is t. Substitute. When I substitute, I replace a symbol with a number. I plug it in and then I evaluate the answer. So these kind of go hand in hand with one another. Different notations signify multiplication. I can use an x, although very rare once you start algebra, because as you see from above, typically x's are used as a variable to represent an unknown number. When letters are next to one another, it's understood to be multiplication. The dot is multiplication, and you can have 1 or 2 set of parentheses. For division, I can either use that division symbol or the division bar, also known as the fraction bar. So let's put this into play. Why don't you take a look at the next 4 examples, and what you should do is pause the video here, answer these on your own, and then you can come back and check your answers with me. So I have the answers here. Now take a look at how you did. The first one should have been relatively straightforward. In the second example, my variable is not xy. My variables are x and y, and the coefficient of that term is 6. There's only one term. Again, 3, that coefficient's -1, and there are 2 terms. In 4, again, I have 3 variables. Those cannot be combined, and we'll discuss that in a few days. But I have a coefficient of my x squared term, which is 3, a coefficient of my x term, which is 1, and a coefficient of my y term, which is -2. Let's take a closer look at this evaluate and substitute situation that we just defined. I want to evaluate each expression if a equals 4 and b equals 8. So basically, I'm just plugging in. I have a equal to 4 and b equal to 8. Now, The one step I need to see from you is that substitution step. For instance, I know that you can all do that in your head. However, these are going to get increasingly more complex pretty quickly, and if you make an error in your computation, then you can't get partial credit if you do it in your head. Whereas if you show this step of 8 minus 4 and you got 7 or something, then you would at least get credit for knowing how to substitute in. 8 minus 4, however, is 4. So why don't you try the next several of those and come back and check your answers. I left all the answers up here for you. Now notice how I am showing all my work here. I'm showing what I'm doing. When necessary, I'm using the parentheses. In the case of number 6, I'm squaring a and multiplying it by 2. That power is sitting on the a, not on the 2. If I wanted to square 2a, I would have done that. So this is 2 times 4 squared, which is 2 times 16, which is 32. Now let's throw in some negatives and decimals and mix it up a little bit. I'm going to let you work on these after I do a couple with you. I will tell you that you need to beware of the negatives. So for instance, let's look at letter B. I'm going to use parentheses where I substitute in. So I have negative 8 times negative B all over negative A. So that's the opposite of A. That is the opposite of negative 2. In fact, this is 24 divided by 2, or 12. Be very careful with negatives. In the case of letter E, I'm going to take D, which is negative 8, and raise it to the A power, which is negative 2. Now remember that that's a fraction, 1 over negative 8 to the second power. And so that's 1/64th. Final answer. As you can see, they can get kind of complicated. Let's take a look at 5 down below. 5 wants me to take y and square it. What is y? Y is negative 2. So I'm squaring negative 2, and that's how you should write that one. When I square negative 2, it means negative 2 times negative 2, which is positive 4. Again, taking a look at another negative that might be an issue, if I take number 7, that's the opposite of y minus z. Well, the opposite of y is negative 2, minus z, minus 6. So that's positive 2 minus 6, which is negative 4. Lots of integer practice here. Take a look at these on your own, pause the video, solve them, and come back and check your answers with me. The answers are all shown here for you. Please make note of the way that I show my work. It's very important that you're showing these steps, and it's very important to use parentheses, especially when you're squaring things or when you're taking the opposite of a number. If you have any questions on these, circle them or highlight them and we can discuss them together tomorrow. Let's go on to the next page. The first question asks you to tell whether the given number is a solution for the equation. Now we've moved on to equations, so there's an equal sign, but they still want us to substitute. So I'm going to take the 2 and I'm going to plug it in for A, and I'm going to see, does that work? Well, 6 times 2 plus 10, does that equal 22? And this is like you're asking a question, and this one works. Yes, it does. How about negative 7 times negative 2 minus 12? Does that equal negative 28? No, in fact, that does not, because I would get positive 14 minus 12, which is 2. Try the next one quickly. If you need to pause here and come back and check. I have 5 times 2 minus negative 2. I want to know if that equals 8. 5 times 2 is 10. 10 plus 2 is 12. 12 is not equal to 8, so that does not work. The last part of this lesson is dealing with evaluating formulas, and this is really just doing what we've been doing, except that they look a little bit more complicated. And you should have seen some of these formulas in your past. You may not have seen all of them, but basically our job is not to question the formula at this point. You will be questioning the formula later, both in math and science. But right now, our job is to plug in and find out the answer. And again, you need to show your steps here. Example 1, A equals 1/2 BH. That should look a little familiar to you. I'm hoping right now that you're thinking, oh, wait, I've seen that before. You should have seen it before. It happens to be the area of a geometric figure, and that geometric figure is a triangle. So I want to find that, and what the science teachers ask you to do, actually you must do in science, is you use the ESA format. You write the equation, you substitute, and you give the answer. So they want to see all of those 3 steps. We have our equation there. Now I'm going to substitute. I'm trying to find the area. My B is 8 and my H is 6. When I evaluate that, I get A equals 24, and I know this is an area formula, so I'm going to put units squared. Let's go down and do number 3, and then I'll let you do the rest on your own. Number 3 is a little bit different because they're giving us D. But again, I'm just substituting in. So I'm going to plug in the 25 for D. I'm trying to find M, and I know that V is 6. This is density, mass over volume. We don't know how to solve equations yet, but you should be able to do that mental math. What number divided by 6 equals 25? Well, M would have to be 150. And I'm just going to put units here because the density would depend on the units that you were given to express that. Go ahead and try the rest on your own. Pause the video and come back and check your answers with me. I have all of these formulas here for you and the solutions. If you have any questions, again, just highlight them or circle them if you don't know where you made your mistake, and we will discuss them tomorrow. Great job tonight. See you all tomorrow.